Imagine building a complex front-end application where your user interface must adapt instantly to shifting requirements, new input fields, role-based dashboards, customized widgets for each client, or entire forms generated from API data. You want to move fast, keep your codebase maintainable, and never repeat yourself when creating or updating UI components. But as your project grows, managing this dynamic UI logic can quickly become chaotic and error-prone. Components get duplicated, configuration is scattered, and adding new features becomes a risky, time-consuming process. The result? Bloated code, bugs, and painful scaling. What if you could centralize, automate, and future-proof your entire UI creation process, making it effortless to add, swap, or customize components at runtime without ever touching the core logic again? That's exactly what mastering the JavaScript Factory Pattern empowers you to do. In this tutorial, you'll unlock the secrets behind the Factory Pattern, a foundational design approach that modern frameworks like React, Vue, and Angular rely on for building dynamic, scalable, and modular interfaces. You'll discover how to architect a flexible system that generates UI components on demand, driven entirely by configuration, user data, or permissions. Step by step, you'll learn how to use factories to streamline dynamic form generation, theme your applications, render UIs based on user roles, and enable easy extension for future requirements. You'll see how this pattern not only cuts down on repetitive code, but also boosts maintainability, testability, and performance, making your front-end apps robust and adaptable for any challenge. By the end of this video, you'll be equipped to centralize and abstract component creation with powerful factory functions, dynamically generate complex UIs from data or configs, extend your system confidently with new component types, and optimize for performance at scale. This isn't just theory, it's a practical toolkit you'll use in real projects, whether you're building admin dashboards, form builders, design systems, or multi-tenant SaaS platforms. If you're serious about mastering modern front-end engineering, staying updated with the latest patterns, and building high-quality, future-proof applications, make sure to subscribe. You'll get access to in-depth tutorials, expert insights, and hands-on guides that keep you ahead of the curve. Now, let's dive in and transform the way you design and deliver dynamic UI components. Imagine building a city out of Lego bricks. Each building, vehicle, or park can be assembled from a set of predefined blocks. The real magic happens when you don't just build static models, but invent a system that lets you rapidly assemble any structure on demand based on a plan or user request. In software development, the factory pattern plays this role. It's the architectural approach that lets you assemble complex objects or UI components from blueprints, rather than manually crafting each one. At its core, the factory pattern is a creational design pattern that abstracts the process of object creation. Instead of calling a constructor or initializing components directly, you delegate the responsibility to a factory function or class. This means your code no longer depends on the details of how components are constructed. It simply asks the factory for what it needs, and the factory handles the rest. This abstraction is crucial in dynamic UI generation because in modern front-end projects, requirements change rapidly, users expect customization, and components often need to appear or change based on runtime data. The factory pattern, like a Lego instruction manual that adapts to your needs, allows you to construct a text field, a dropdown, or a custom widget, all from a configuration or context rather than hard-coded logic. This not only improves code reusability and maintainability, but also future-proofs your architecture. When new types of components or variations are needed, you adjust the factory, not every place that uses those components. That's the essence of the factory pattern, decoupling how things are made from how they're used, making your UI systems as flexible and modular as the most imaginative Lego city. Consider a restaurant kitchen where the chef prepares meals based on customer orders rather than cooking every possible dish in advance. Each order specifies not just the dish, but perhaps ingredients, spice levels, and presentation preferences. The chef uses a set of well-defined recipes and cooking techniques, but adapts each meal to the current request. The JavaScript Factory Pattern brings this culinary flexibility to front-end development. In this paradigm, the factory is like the chef. It takes in a configuration, the order, interprets what's needed, and returns a ready-to-use component, the meal. This configuration-driven approach is pivotal for dynamic UI generation because user interfaces often need to respond to data. Think of a dynamic form that generates input fields based on a JSON schema, or a dashboard that renders widgets according to a user's role or preferences. Without the factory pattern, you would have to write repetitive, rigid code for every possible variation. With it, you gain a system where new options or combinations can be handled with minimal changes. For instance, to support a new type of input field, you add the logic to the factory and update your configuration schema. The rest of your code base remains untouched. This separation of concerns, configuration from implementation, means you can iterate rapidly, scale to new requirements, and even empower non-developers to define UI behavior through configuration files. The result is a front-end architecture that's as responsive and adaptable as a talented chef, capable of serving up exactly the UI experience each user or context demands. This file demonstrates the heart of dynamic UI component generation using the factory pattern in a React environment. The app component defines a configuration array that describes the fields of a form. It leverages the dynamic field factory to render form fields according to their type and configuration, and manages form state and submission logic. The pattern ensures UI components are instantiated dynamically according to runtime configuration, illustrating practical usage of the factory approach in modern front-end projects. This file defines the central factory mechanism for rendering UI fields dynamically based on configuration. It receives a field config describing the field type, along with the current value and change handler. The factory instantiates the proper UI component, text input, select input, or checkbox input, based on the type provided in the configuration, passing through all relevant props. This encapsulation ensures that adding or modifying field types is streamlined and decoupled from the main application logic. This file provides the implementation of a reusable text input field component, designed to be used by the factory for rendering text-based form fields. It accepts label, value, and on-change props, and passes through additional properties as needed. The component is type-checked with prop types for reliability and maintainability, ensuring robust integration within the factory-driven architecture. This file supplies a dynamic select drop-down component used by the factory for rendering selection-based form fields. It takes a label, value, on-change handler, and a list of options. The component is fully prop-typed and designed for seamless factory integration, prioritizing flexibility and extensibility in dynamic UI generation scenarios. This file defines a reusable checkbox input component tailored for dynamic instantiation by the factory. It accepts label, checked state, and an on-change handler, and is validated via prop types. Its structure ensures clear integration with configuration-driven UI rendering and supports extension or customization as required by the application. This configuration file describes the project's dependencies, scripts, and metadata for the Dynamic Form Factory React project. It specifies React, prop types, and testing libraries, as well as build and test scripts to facilitate project setup, development, and CI/CD integration in a modern front-end workflow. The walkthrough begins at a live application showcasing the factory pattern powering dynamic UI component generation. The screen reveals a section titled Dynamic Form Generator, accompanied by a brief description and a form with various fields. The focus shifts to the form inputs. The username field is filled with Alice, and the email field is completed with aliceacme.com. Next, attention turns to the Country Select dropdown. Clicking it loads available country options. Germany is chosen from the list, reflecting asynchronous option loading typical in dynamic forms. The demonstration continues with the favorite color field, where a color value of FFRC41 is entered, showing support for custom input types. The Subscribe to Newsletter checkbox is checked, indicating selection. A special field labeled Special Note, Lazy Loaded, is then filled with the text, "This is a special note," illustrating the factory pattern's ability to incorporate lazily loaded components seamlessly into the form. After all fields are filled, there is a pause, allowing viewers to review the completed form. The form is then submitted by clicking the Submit button. Feedback appears, including a display of the resulting JSON object containing all submitted values, emphasizing how the factory-generated form captures and structures user input dynamically. The demonstration transitions to a new section, Themed Button Factory. A navigation button is clicked to reveal a demo where button themes can be switched on the fly. The theme is changed from light to dark, then to high contrast, and back to light, with each change instantly updating the appearance of all buttons. Various buttons, primary, accent, danger, and custom, extends theme, are hovered over, highlighting the visual differences and dynamic styling provided by the factory-driven component instantiation based on theme selection. Next, the walkthrough moves to the role-based dashboard factory. After clicking the navigation button, a dashboard interface appears, allowing the user to switch between different roles using a drop-down labeled Switch User. The roles Editor, Viewer, and Admin are selected in sequence. Each role change updates the visible dashboard panels and controls, demonstrating how the factory pattern adapts the UI to user permissions or context in real time. The focus then shifts to the Widget Plugin System section. Upon entering this area, several widget checkboxes, Weather, Quote of the Day, and World Clock, are unchecked, resulting in an empty dashboard state. The Weather and Quote of the Day widgets are re-enabled by checking their respective boxes, causing their panels to appear dynamically. The World Clock widget is then added, with a short delay as its content is lazily loaded and rendered. Unchecking Quote of the Day removes it from the dashboard, illustrating dynamic plugin management and component lifecycle controlled by the factory pattern. Finally, the demonstration explores the multi-tenant branding section. The user cycles through different tenants using the Select Tenant drop-down, switching between Globex, Starware, and Acme. Each selection triggers instant changes to the application's branding, such as color schemes, logos, and headings, demonstrating how the factory enables per-tenant UI customization from a single codebase. The experience concludes by scrolling to the bottom of the page, briefly revealing the application footer with the currently active branding in effect. You've just unlocked one of the most practical design patterns for modern front-end development, the JavaScript Factory Pattern. By mastering this approach, you're now equipped to build dynamic, scalable, and maintainable UI systems. Whether you're architecting complex forms, scaling a design system, or delivering customized experiences to different user groups, this pattern isn't just theory, it's a game changer for real-world projects, making your code base cleaner, more adaptable, and far easier to extend as requirements evolve. The next step? Start applying these concepts in your own code. Experiment with abstract factories, integrate registry patterns, and see firsthand how much smoother your front-end workflow becomes. If you're ready to accelerate your mastery of front-end architecture with actionable, example-driven guidance, hit subscribe now. You'll get a steady stream of strategies that don't just explain patterns, but show exactly how to use them to solve everyday engineering challenges faster and smarter.